Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Deal. Late Tuesday night. Personally, some massive news coming in for Dan Lanning, the Oregon Ducks. Former Tulane running back Makhi Hughes committing to Oregon. Dill, this kid's a difference maker at the running back spot. I'm going to go out as a Michigan fan myself. I'll go out and say this. Makhi Hughes, when you turn on the tape, I get some Blake Corum vibes, man. 5'11", 210, thick lower half, deals with contact exceptionally well, short area quicks, really impressive. I mean, maybe the only thing that I don't know is elite with Makhi Hughes is the long speed, although he certainly is not slow. But Dill, this is a running back that gives you just about everything you want at the running back position going into 2025. And obviously with Jordan James going to the NFL, I think Oregon was looking for that RB1 going into 2025, and that's not to say that Noah Whittington, should he choose to come back, which I believe he has another year to come back, can't be that guy. But Makhi Hughes, to me, if you have the opportunity to bring in this caliber of running back, I think you take it every single time. Want to get into kind of a couple of different conversations. One, let's talk about Makhi Hughes. I think number two, Dill, you are very stingy in terms of what programs do in the transfer portal. Are they over recruiting their high school talent? We kind of had that discussion earlier when we were talking about Malik Benson. You weren't on. I'm going to get your take on that as well now before we get into it, as always. To the Oregon fans, y'all know we have a blast talking this program, and the amount of support many of y'all have been showing really since 12 months ago. As we were breaking down the commitments 12 months ago on the transfer portal, it's been a blast talking this team. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Deal, without further ado, I'm going to give myself the T-box here because I want to dive into Makhi Hughes. Okay, I gave the Blake Corum comp. You get into some of the numbers. One, you simply can't argue with the production the last 2 years. And this is a guy the last 2 seasons over 2,700 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns, averaging almost 5.5 yards per carry. You look at 2024, 62 missed tackles forced. This is a guy that, because he's got a little bit of that low center of gravity, thick lower half, he's very hard to bring down, deals with contact exceptionally well. Dill, over 1,000 yards after contact in the 2024 season. There's a lot of running backs that don't run for 1,000 yards in a season. Makhi Hughes did that after contact. I think that's the thing that sticks out to me the most. But then the secondary thing, Dylan, it's kind of hard. You can't really evaluate it with numbers, but you kind of know it when you see it, and that is the feel for the position. And that's something that why I made the comp to Blake Corum. Not only do they have kind of similar body compositions, Blake Corum always had such good feel. Like, he knew when he had to just slam it up and get a hard 5 yards. He knew when he was able to bounce it out. Very good at reading and setting up his blocks. That's, to me, what Makhi Hughes brings that makes him elite. I'm fired up to see what this kid can bring to Eugene, Oregon.
And Oregon was at their best when they were running downhill and attacking the line of
Agreed.
scrimmage. It wasn't when they were going side to side. I feel like that was sort of when they got themselves in trouble. So you want to bring in running backs who, again, I think fit that more hard-nosed run scheme that I think Oregon was best at. And you kind of talk about a guy who is very comfortable taking hard yards and grinding them out a little bit. I think that's exactly kind of the back you'd want to bring in.
And one of the things I'll say is, as much as, Dylan Gabriel got talked about, and Tez Johnson got talked about, and Bo Nix got talked about, and Troy Franklin got talked about, what continues to make this Oregon offense so difficult to deal with is how multidimensional they are. Like, yeah, they have a very good passing attack, which I think it could even take a step in the right direction in 2025 with Dante Moore, but they also have a really good run game. And I think Makhi Hughes is that difference-making running back that you're looking for. And the last thing I'll say about Makhi Hughes, Dill, we talked all year about Oregon staying on schedule on offense. This is a kid that doesn't take negative plays. Like, when it is time to make a 2nd and 8, a 2nd and 6, and kind of find those hard yards to keep your offense on schedule, he's going to do some of that dirty work too, which is really important at the running back spot, especially in this Oregon offense that wants to be in those third manageable situations. Now, let's continue this conversation, but I think broaden it a little bit. Malik Benson commits to Oregon earlier today. I talked about it. I'm intrigued by Malik Benson. And Dill, my take, well, know what? They've already heard my take. I'm going to give it you, the T-box. Is Oregon treading or kind of walking that line between over or recruiting over their high school talent?
I don't necessarily think so at the wideout spot. I look like, frankly, Evan Stewart not being in that Ohio State game, you felt it probably more than you would have wanted to if you're the
Agreed.
Oregon Ducks. I look like guys weren't getting open outside of Tez Johnson in that football game, and that's a huge problem. So again, like, yeah, you're recruiting a really good player. You have some young guys in the pipeline that you certainly like. But given that performance against Ohio State when Evan Stewart wasn't in, I think you want more competition at the end of the day. And I'm not necessarily saying Malik Benson's for sure going to be a starter for this team, because you do have some interesting young guys coming through the program, like McClellan, like DeCorian Moore, guys like Kyle Casper and Jurian Dickey. But I still think you want more competition, because at the end of the day, it wasn't good enough in that Ohio State game.
Okay, two things. One, I'll give Trayshawn Holden a shout out too. Thought he was excellent in the Rose Bowl. Number two, I don't think Malik Benson should be a kind of wide receiver that scares off someone like Jeremiah McClellan. And what I said earlier is, look, Malik Benson brings a set of skills that I think Oregon needs a little bit more of in the wide receiver room. Now, they might get that with a guy like DeCorian Moore, but at the end of the day, Malik Benson, 6'1", 200 pounds, runs a 10.4 in the 100-meter dash. If I'm Dan Lanning, again, football at the simplest form, Dill, is size, speed, game. Like, if you got the big players who are really fast, chances are you're going to have a pretty good roster. Although Malik Benson is not a proven great wide receiver, granted, he was on a Florida State team that was brutal in 2024. This is a guy that Dan Lanning, I don't blame him for betting on. And I think Oregon puts themselves in a position to bet on a guy like Malik Benson, because guess what? If he doesn't work out, you got plenty of guys that could step up and be difference makers. As Michigan fans, though, we don't got no wide receivers. Like, we don't have the luxury of taking a lottery ticket on Malik Benson, because we need guys that we know are good. Malik Benson's a little bit of an unknown, but the upside that he offers with the size and speed, I think that's too good to pass up. And then, Dill, secondly, you said something. Without Evan Stewart, I don't know if it was about separation as much as Evan Stewart was the guy that worked vertically down the field. They didn't really have another guy that was a proven commodity attacking the deeper third. With Dante Moore at quarterback, I think they're going to push the ball down the field a little bit more. Like, Dylan Gabriel, we knew, doesn't have the biggest arm. With Dante Moore in 2025, you're probably going to want to be more aggressive with the downfield passing attack. And Malik Benson's a wide receiver that if you want to enhance your down the field passing attack, Malik Benson is a guy
and if
that
somebody stepped up in that Ohio State game to fill the shoes of Evan Stewart a little bit better, I'd be a little bit like, maybe you don't want to see it. But even still, just adding competition, I don't think it's a room that has that clear-cut guy. Evan Stewart being back, you have your wide receiver one.
Yes.
But again, you certainly need guys to go around them. And when it's not wildly proven and you have a quarterback as talented as Dante Moore, I'm okay doing that, because again, if those guys rocked out in that Rose Bowl game, fine, maybe it's a bit of a different conversation. But at the end of the day, that's not exactly what happened.
Yeah, yes, I get that. I think what it comes down to more is just Dan Lanning's not going to waste an opportunity to make the roster better and facilitate competition. And if you're a wide receiver on this Oregon team and you look at Malik Benson coming in and saying, I don't want to compete with him, it's not the program for you, because Dan Lanning is going to do that at every single position. Like, competitive depth is clearly very important. And this is the last thing I'll say. Look at the guys that are leaving this Oregon program. And this is not meant to be a shot. And we talked about the same thing last year. Oregon brought in, I think the number was 16 transfer portal additions last year, of which 10 of them were like big-time contributors for Oregon. They didn't really lose any guys they didn't want to lose. Now, you start scrolling down the list. Yeah, Jaren Kiwi, Sagaputele, that didn't have to deal with that. I don't think that was kind of a separate problem. Yeah, Ryan Pelham maybe stunk to lose a little bit, but I start scrolling down this list, and this is with all due respect to the names that are transferring out. How many guys are we losing that you look at and say Oregon fans or Dan Lanning are losing sleep over? And so I guess my argument is Dan Lanning has used the transfer portal aggressively and very well, I might add, but it to me rarely comes at the expense of good young players on your roster. They're staying within this program. That's probably where I'll close it. You look at the wide receiver room deal with Evan Stewart coming back, which is probably a bigger storyline. We kind of glossed over that. That's huge because I think Oregon was looking for that wide receiver one. I don't think Malik Benson was going to be that guy. Evan Stewart, bona fide wide receiver one. I think he's going to get more opportunity in this Dante Moore offense, which I am extremely fired up about. And now you start filling it in with some really young, talented guys. You know, whether it's Jerrion Dickey, whether it's DeCorian Moore, whether it's Jeremiah McClellan. Exciting times for Oregon. And I think where I'll close it, sorry, I'm kind of rambling a little bit. As long as Dan Lanning is coaching in Eugene, and I know the 2024 season did not end the way a lot of Oregon fans wanted it to, you know you are going to be competing for national championships every single year. And quite frankly, there's not a lot of programs that can say that. Like the roster building that you're seeing him do, I think is really impressive. There was a debate. Now I'm really rambling. There was a debate on Twitter about Oregon being a blue blood. And I think look at the Oregon fans' reactions to this football game. I mean, they're not happy about winning a Big Ten championship and then losing in the playoffs. I think that tells you the standard of where this Oregon program is under Dan Lanning. All right, now we'll sign out. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.